Now, on the show, it's always nice to welcome back guests we've had on the show before. And the next guest on the feature is no exception. We have the man of the hour, Owen Paul. Welcome.
How you doing, Danny? Nice to be called the man of the hour. I like it.
Great. And it's nice to have you back. And I'm sure our listeners will be delighted. How has this year gone for you so far?
Well, actually, not bad. Up and down, the same as for everyone else. Obviously, Christmas was difficult. New Year's been difficult because you don't get to see your family and your friends. I haven't seen my children for some time now. But on the upside, obviously, for me, never mind a lot of other musical artists, we're still getting on because of technology. We can still, through Zoom calls, whatever, get talk to other musicians and still make
Yeah.
records. So we've been making a brand new record, and it's out right now. It's just come out. So in that regard, we've got work done. But on a personal level, the
Yeah.
same as everyone else all over the country, we want this to end, and we're
Yeah.
just we want to get out there and meet everyone again.
Sure. And on my last interview with you, I spoke about your career in the 80s. And
Yeah,
we're going to touch on your projects very shortly, latter part of the
sure,
interview.
sure,
In my last interview, there was a few more questions I didn't get a chance to ask, and some of our listeners have emailed in with their cues.
right.
So from the top, I was just going to ask you, were you always surrounded by music in your family household?
Very, very much so. I'm Scottish, so everyone's having a sing song and get the guitars out or a piano or whatever, and everyone had to do a turn, as they call it, especially at New Year. It made me very much accustomed to singing in public because everyone had to have a go at something. So I kind of learnt my trade
Yeah.
in front of my close friends and family at that point. And my mum was a massive music fan. She used to have the radio on constantly,
Yeah.
and even when the radio wasn't on, she would walk around the house, and she still does to this day,
Yeah.
just just doing her chores, going la da da dee dee da 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 da.
Yeah.
And everyone, it used to annoy every other members of my family, but it didn't annoy me. And I'm pretty much the same now. My children have noticed that I do the same thing. I brush my teeth and I go da dee dee da da dee da da. So yes, I had music everywhere, and obviously with the influence of my brother
Yeah.
Brian when he became big and successful with Simple Minds,
Yeah.
that was a massive deal as well.
Yeah.
But musically, I've been surrounded by music, especially folk and country music, all my life.
Yeah, yeah. It's about to say actually in my notes here, Brian McGee. He was Simple Minds. Was he in the band around the time of Life in a Day and The American, 1981?
Absolutely,
Yeah, yeah,
yes, he was. My brother Brian, Jim Kerr, and Charlie Burchill formed Simple Minds, I think, 1978, because they were all school friends,
yeah.
and they used to rehearse in our house, and that's how my brother, I think, did 6 albums with them,
Hmm.
including the tracks that you mentioned. He did Life in a Day, he did The American,
Yeah,
he Love Songs, another one,
yeah,
and made some brilliant, brilliant records. But their success and the potential, I mean, it's one of those things where if you see your brother on TV, I remember him being on the Old Grey Whistle test,
yeah,
it's the same for everyone. Everyone looks at the TV and goes, hang on a minute, if he can, maybe I could, you
hmm,
know? So it had a positive effect.
yeah. Nice.
And lots of people around me at school as well were starting to form bands out of nowhere, left, right, and centre, just
Yeah,
because of it. It was a great motivational thing.
sure. Some of the best bands coming out of Scotland were from that decade, the 1980s.
Very much so, and a lot of them are most are very, well, nearly all of them came from my school. Weirdly,
Wow. And you released a couple of years back an acoustic 80s EP with cover songs from Crowded House U2. And
yeah,
we're actually going to play on one of my shows, Is This Love by Whitesnake.
yes.
Why did you choose that particular song, just out of interest?
Well, I've always loved that track, and Whitesnake. A friend of mine, a guy called Mickey Moody, was actually in the band, and he was one of the guitarists. And I got to hear that song before it was released in the 80s, and I loved that song. And then, as I was doing some gigs, I can't remember over the last sort of 5, 6 years, people would ask me, would I sing? I do like requests in the middle of the show,
Yeah.
and I remember one of the gigs, someone shouted out, "I bet you can't sing Is This Love by David Coverdale and Whitesnake." And I went, well, hang on a minute. So the audience are now waiting for me to try and figure it out. And then I did it, and it really worked, especially just acoustic and me.
Brill.
and it went down really, really well. So that song has been with me now, and I've put it in my shows for many, many years. That's why I chose it.
That's great. And I hear one of your favourite 80s songs is The Living Daylights by Aha.
Yes.
And have you heard the album version from Stay on the Roads? It's totally different to the James
Is it?
Bond
Is it?
version. Yeah, it's really striking. It's cold and it's icy, reworking of that track. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna have to Google that and
Yeah,
try and get it on YouTube or something,
yeah,
because
you'll love it.
the single version that I'm accustomed to, obviously, which came from the movie.
Yeah,
I actually like quite a lot of Bond themes
yeah,
in the past, and like Carly Simon or Shirley Bassey or whatever. But I thought that perfectly matched the movie and the
yeah,
times as well.
yeah, great. And I know MFWOT, my favourite waste of time.
Yeah.
Ralph McTell once quoted about the streets of London, where would he have been if it wasn't for that song, and what would he be doing now? Do you feel kind of the same with MFWOT?
Yes, I think, for a long time, especially after its massive success and how famous I became during that time, but it was also a double-edged sword, and it became a problem for me because it was such a poppy record that my record company wanted to make pop records and nothing else.
Yeah,
So that became quite difficult. So for a few years after that time in the 80s, I kind of didn't want to be Owen Paul. And then I kind of grew up and got over myself. And I thought, you know what, it's a fantastic record. I'm very, very proud of it.
yeah,
And then when you do 80s festivals, if you play like Rewind or the Let's Rock, and you sing it in front of 25,000 people, and they can sing it word for word, and you don't realise how much it means to them,
yeah,
then it's the most incredible feeling. So,
yeah,
for example, if I get announced to walk on at a festival after Lamal or the Thompson Twins or something, and the opening bit is "Your Man," and then 25,000 people sing it back to you.
good
The next
feeling.
bit,
Yeah,
it's incredible.
yeah,
It's absolutely incredible. So I'm very, very proud of it.
good for you. And my favourite waste of time. I've just discovered there's a 12-inch jumbo mix of it.
There is.
And what gets me about that song, there's lots of interesting sounding instruments on that mix. I think I heard a didgeridoo,
Yes, you did.
a castanet, and the saxophone.
Yes, you did. You're probably the first person that's ever asked me about the didgeridoo. And when we were doing, when we used to do 12 inches, it's not like now where with technology you can sample a sound and then add it. Then you had to create the sounds yourself because it was all on tape. It wasn't on digital formats. And I remember, because we were extending the song from whatever it is, 3.5 minutes to something like 8 minutes, I remember virtually saying to someone in the studio, you know what, we should just put everything but the kitchen sink into this. And someone said to me as a joke, I bet there's not a didgeridoo in there.
I really enjoyed it. I was walking today and I had it on, and it's totally different to the radio edit. I do recommend the listener to check it out.
I have to tell you though, trying to track down someone who could play a didgeridoo wasn't so easy.
Yes, yes. And I read that you run a successful ballroom and Latin dancing club. What was that
Yes,
like?
well, it was when I sort of drifted away from being a pop person or a performer, even though I was still writing and recording and whatever. I just wasn't releasing anything. So I did many jobs. One of them was me and a friend of mine ran a ballroom dancing club in the West End of London, in Leicester Square, and it was the most lovely thing. It was like tea dances, right? So it was people from the 30s. Who at the time we were running it in the 90s, who are now in their latter years, and they might have lost a partner, and it was somewhere for them to come and socialise and to dress up to go to. And I really liked that part of it, and some of the music's brilliant as well. So I got to discover music by Matt Monro, for example,
nice.
who's a brilliant singer.
Yeah.
For example, From Russia with Love, which is incredible, especially as we were talking about Bond themes.
Yeah.
And but the most important part for me when we ran the Ballroom Dancing Club was not so much the music or the dancing. It was that it allowed lonely people to have somewhere to go and people to meet and to interact and socialise. And I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, great. Bit of community spirit then.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask, what's your favourite kind of Latino dance? Tango, salsa, rumba, samba, list goes on. And would you do Strictly Come Dancing if they offered?
Well, for me, I like the Viennese waltz. I think it's beautiful. And but for the Latin America stuff, definitely the rumba. That is my favorite one.
Nice.
I've actually got some tracks of mine from a previous album that you can do a fantastic rumba to.
Cool.
And as for Strictly, I don't think they would ask. I'm
Yeah.
probably overqualified, and I would win it hands down.
Yeah, that's a spirit. And what was it like working with Swedish club DJ Stonebridge? I'm a fan of theirs, and Damien Hall on the remixed song
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. It was like an incredible thing. I mean, even to be involved with a guy as successful as that, and as you know, as I've mentioned before, I think in the previous interview, most of my songs are very folky and basic, you know, like country songs. And the song "Amazing" was again one of those. And I sent it out to a few people, and then someone said to me, "There's a guy called Stonebridge that's interested in that," and he because people were doing remixes of "Favorite Waste of Time." This is around 2016 for its anniversary, and he said, "But Stonebridge wants to do a new track, and he's heard "Amazing," and he wants to do that. Would he?" And he said, can he do it?" And I was like, "You bet he can."
Yeah,
And then he turned it into a masterful dance track. Not that I know anything about dance, but it sounds great to me.
yeah. Sounds very fresh anyway.
And it was my first UK official chart hit in something like 25 years.
Wow. Impressive. And on to your new single now, Sparkle in the Rain.
Yeah.
I've got it says here, described as a country ballad. Is it very meaningful? Can relate to it?
Well, I like to hope so. I
Yeah,
mean, for me, I like to, I don't like to make a record with just a bunch of any words and any notes just because they sound nice, even though I think that's important. I always like to, I create tracks that in my head, first and foremost, about subjects that I care about. And I'm just trying to share my thoughts and my ideas. And more so even in these times where I think we're all being a bit more reflective
yeah,
about what we value and think's important.
yeah.
And the song "Spark in the Rain" is about all the strong women that I've had in my life over
Mm,
the many years, including my mum, who are very positive people, my sister as well. And when I watch my sister with her children, for example, even in these tough times, there's never a moment where she drops her guard. She's always very upbeat.
yeah.
And the song is about that, about people who are, super positive and always like look on the bright side and drag you through it. And I'm very, very happy with it.
And I can relate to it, especially some people who have had a loss in their life as well, like Sparkle in the Rain, someone who's very dear to you. Then they're never too far away. You know, when you see that glint in the snow or the sparkle in the rain, they're not too
Absolutely.
far.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned before, with the subject, it's like when I mentioned it, especially in this case about strong women that have been in my life, is that their influence lasts forever,
Mm,
and I see myself utilizing their behaviour and their strength in my own life with my own children and my own issues and stuff.
yeah.
And it's very I'll say it again, their influence lasts forever, and that's what the song's about.
That's lovely. And to wrap up on another memorable interview, on a lighter note, how were your KFC crisps?
I tell you what, right? I bought them, was a bit shocked by them, but I have to say I secretly quite like them.
That's great. Well, Owen Paul, it's always a delight to have you on the show, the Danny Sun feature, and we're going to get one of your tracks played now for you. All the best with
Thank you.
everything, and I wish you success as always.
Thank you, Danny.
Okay, all the
Always good
best.
to talk.